You're about to watch Presentation Hero, which is my premium course on presentation skills. In 10 lessons, I will share with you the storytelling mountain, the storytelling structure that I use to this day and all my clients use to this day to create great presentations. Then I'm going to share with you in 16 lessons the principles not just of slide design, the principles of good design, including color theory. And then in 12 short lessons, I'll share with you the most important tenets of stage hygiene, how you should behave physically with your voice, with your body on the stage. The promise of this course is to be compact. I've tried to pack all of these lessons in such a way that in just little over 1 hour and 35 minutes, you will get most of the information that I have collected in over 20 years of studying communication. These videos won't feature me, my face, but just my voice and some animated slides. These animations have been done in Keynote, so they show also the possibilities of these platforms. Before you go ahead, download the slides and the transcripts that I've packaged for you because it's going to be much easier to follow the course that way. There's a download link below. And while you're there, have a look at the rest of the channel, because 10 years ago, I was very much focused simply on communication and presentations. Today, I focus on mindset. I help entrepreneurs. I deal with what makes founders tick. And you'll find a lot of really interesting resources on the channel. And since these videos weren't meant for YouTube at the beginning, I'll never remind you in these videos that you should like and subscribe and leave a comment. So do it right now. It helps enormously. So I leave you to these 3 modules: presentation structure, presentation design, presentation delivery. Enjoy them. And if you find them useful, give me a sign, leave me a note, send me an email. I'll always reply. I always read every email and always reply personally to every email. Thank you so much.
Know your audience. Lesson number 1 of the 10 lessons that comprise the presentation basic structure module. Let's start. So your presentation is clearly from you. There's no doubt about that, but it's for your audience. Now, what do you know about your audience? Do you know them well enough? And if you don't know them, how would you go by researching them? There's 2 methodologies. The first one, if you have a small group, you can wear your Sherlock Holmes costume and start investigating. How would you do that? But online, obviously. You can go to their company website, you can go to SlideShare and find the company presentations, you can research the company blog, or even read articles in the press about the people in the companies that you're going to meet. And you can also go on social media, like on Twitter and LinkedIn, but don't be creepy. Don't stalk people on Facebook or Instagram. The second methodology involves larger groups. In this case, you cannot research single individuals or companies. What you can do is develop personas. So imagine the type of individuals that are in your audience. Let's make an example. You go to a business conference, and this business conference is attended by people in marketing and in sales. All right? So in this case, you would have 2 personas, one representing marketing and one representing sales. Now, let's give them a name, because let's make them a person in a way. Let's give them a backstory. Why did they choose marketing or sales? What did they do before? What kind of aspirations do they have right now? Give them a personality finally, because they will need to speak to you later. So imagine that you were one of those people. And this is not very easy, because you have to change your perspective from you looking at the room to the room looking at you. You have to impersonate a member of your audience. In other words, you have to put yourself in their shoes. But other people's shoes are not so comfortable at all times. So let's learn a technique that will help us wear those shoes. So your audience has wants. They have the desire to get informed. They want to get inspired. They want maybe to evaluate you or evaluate your idea. And they want to do this during the course of your presentation. Your audience also has life goals. They have overarching goals that are not related to your presentation, but they are always relevant in their life. They want to become more skilled. They want to advance their career. They want to grow their business. Your audience has stakes. They have made investments in the past. And this investment is something that they always keep in mind. Maybe they have invested in their growth, personal or professional. And this is what's at stake in their lives. And your audience has tactical reasons to be there. Maybe someone sent them and told them, attend this conference, or they chose to be there, and maybe they paid a really high price tag to attend just that conference, or they just happened to be there. They stumble upon your presentation. But you also have wants. You have something that you want to get by the end of the presentation. You have your own goals, be them professional or personal. You have some stakes. You have investments you made in the past, and you have reasons to do your presentation. Now, you should write them down, but you should write them down using the user stories. So try to write down all the wants of your audience, of every persona of your audience as a story. So write down, as an audience member, I want, and then what the audience member would want. Like, in terms of goals, as an audience member, my goals are. In terms of stakes, as an audience member, my stakes are in. And finally, in terms of reasons, as an audience member, I'm attending because. And do this for each of the persons or each of the personas that's going to be in the room with you. Now, list your own wants, goals, stakes, and reasons. And what you'll end up with is 2 lists. These 2 lists may be completely divergent, and you may have wants and goals and stakes and reasons that are completely unrelated. You have to reconcile those lists, and you have to follow some rules to reconcile those lists. First of all, if your wants and goals diverge, that's a problem, because you have to realign them. And if no goal matches, you have to give priority to your audience over your own goals, and this can be counterintuitive. You have to create benefits in the areas that are at stake for you and your audience, and you have to keep an eye on the outcomes. What are your reasons to do the presentation, and what is your desired outcome? Now to the hard stuff. Lay out your material and look at it with your audience's eyes. Listen to your words, listen to your language with the ears of your audience. How does that language feel? Does it feel connected to the world of your audience? How do they see your visuals? Do they see the same things you see in your pictures, in your pie charts, in your icons? How do they relate to the overall style of your presentation? Boom! If you have done all of this correctly, there shouldn't be one single slide of your presentation left standing. This process changes everything and gives you a fantastic blank slate where you know exactly how to nail your goals and the goals of your audience, how to satisfy all the wants and keep in mind all the stakes while knowing all the reasons. So to summarize, in this process, change your perspective. It's crucial. Investigate your audience or create some personas. Understand the wants, goals, stakes, and reasons. Reconcile them with yours, and look at your material with their eyes. So your presentation is coming from you. But do you know that your audience knows you? Do you know that everybody in your audience know you? So tell them your name. Even if the MC introduced you and told something about you, repeat your name. Why is that? Well, most probably everyone in the audience knows you already, but there might be someone who still doesn't know you. And in this case, well, a little repetition will not hurt at all. Now imagine that your presentation is just starting, yet you're in front of the microphone. What should be the first thing that you do? Well, in my opinion, your job is to motivate your audience, is to light them up, to give them enough reason to follow your presentation. And one thing you can do for that is to provide a bio of yours. Now, should you recite your whole resume? Well, probably not a good idea. But why don't you stay between 5 and 20 words and simply help them put you on a map, help them locate you, help them define you with 2 or 3 words by understanding in what field you're an expert and what is it that you are all about. Now, providing your name in your bio are just a way to highlight your humanity and to help your audience realize that they can relate with you and that maybe they can follow your presentation as well. So to summarize, say your name, highlight your humanity, help your audience put you on a map by providing a very short bio, and start motivating them. So you told your audience who you are. You told them your name, you told them your bio. Now it's time to reveal your motivation for presenting. Why are you on stage? Make it very clear. Let me give you some examples. For instance, you could tell your audience what is your relationship and your perspective relative to the topic you are presenting. Another thing you can show them is how much you invested in the topic, how high your stakes are in the topic. Another thing that is really works a lot is to show how passionate you are about the topic. Because chances are that if you care and if you show that you care, your audience will care as well. You see, your motivation is contagious. And if you show your motivation, your audience motivation will come out and blossom automatically. Now, a different thing. At the beginning of your presentation, sign an ideal agreement with your audience. You will not need a fountain pen. You will not need a suit. But what you need to do is to reveal the structure and the timing of your presentation. So let me make an example. You could start off by saying, during this talk, I will tell you 3 stories that will last 5 minutes each. And by giving this mental map to your audience, they will know all the time exactly where you are in your presentation and when your presentation is going to end. In this format, to the right, you see the 10 lessons that make up the module. And at the bottom, you always have a timeline that tells you the progress of the video. If your audience feels in control, they relax. And when they relax, they open up and they're more available to digest your content. So motivating your audience and revealing your structure are extremely beneficial in order to make your presentation a success. So to summarize, your motivation is contagious. Show it clearly and reveal the structure and timing. It will calm and open your audience. So your presentation just started, you introduced yourself, and now you are in front of your audience. They showed up, and that's awesome. The reason was strong enough to attend, but is it strong enough to listen to you? You need to provide your audience with the motivation to follow through and listen to you till the end of your presentation. And you do so by providing a sample of the outcome of your presentation. I'm talking about providing a sample, and this means showing, not telling. It means practically giving a little bit of that advantage beforehand and not talking about that advantage. So what will they gain from that presentation? But more importantly, how will they be transformed by following your presentation till the end? Do it early in your presentation because your audience might get distracted really, really soon. For example, I will tell you and I will promise you they'll get better at presenting, but I immediately provide you with the techniques to research and know your audience. So to summarize, bring your audience from reason to motivation, and do so by providing a sample of the outcome. Your presentation is about change. Your presentation is about a transformation. You are going to transform your audience. Now, this may seem something very abstract. So let's make some examples of the kinds of transformation that you will elicit in your audience during your presentation. Now, first of all, you may shift the point of view of your audience towards something that is familiar or unfamiliar to them. The other thing you could do is to get them to see something up close, closer than they usually see it. Another thing is that you can introduce them to a completely and radically new concept that can grow inside their minds. And finally, you can take something familiar but make them feel differently about it. So every presentation is really about a transformation. Every type of presentation, and no type of presentation is excluded. Let's look at some of those types. So for instance, in case you're doing a pitch or a marketing presentation, you are creating a new concept in the minds of your audience. In the case of a training presentation like this one, your audience is transformed by the process of learning your material. In the case of a sales presentation, you are creating a new desire and growing this desire in the hearts and minds of your audience. In the case of a motivational and informative presentation, you are trying to change the relationship between your audience and the topic that you are presenting. And it's really important that you know that there is no presentation if there is no transformation. This is the only reason why you would step on stage and present. This is the only reason why you would be presenting. Now, what is, in practical terms, this transformation? So, your presentation has a beginning and an end. And the transformation is what changes between these two moments. So if we look at the presentation in this way, we can say that your whole presentation is about change. There is not one point of the presentation that is not about a change. We will call this change the core transformation. And we will use this throughout Presentation Hero. Now, you can have more than one in your presentation. Let's say that you have a longer presentation, you can have more than one core transformation. And the core transformation is the base for the whole structure of your presentation. Exactly. You can build all of your presentation on top of this core transformation. And you know what's fantastic about it? Is that it's the one thing that your audience will most easily remember. So focusing on the core transformation will be the base for the structure, but also the memorable takeaway that your audience will take home. So, to summarize, find your core transformation, focus attentively on it, and build, structure your whole presentation around it, and make it the base for the success of your presentation. In the first lessons of this module, we learned that we need to motivate our audience, and recently we recognized that we need to transform our audience. But now we have to deal with their reactions. And here we notice one particular thing, is that our audience is made of individuals, and each individual will have their own unique way to react to our material. They are all having a different reaction, and that is totally fine. Every single reaction in every single moment of your presentation is not so important. It's not the goal to please everyone. It's not the goal to make everyone laugh. It's not the goal to involve everyone at the same time. In order to better understand how unique and individual our audience is, let's look at some categories of audience members. I don't want to make a list that includes everything. I just want to make some examples. So the first example for me are the confused. To them, any information is way too much information, and they will always be a little bit puzzled by new data and new concepts. Then there's another group, a particularly lovely one. They're the fans. You don't have to judge your presentation by how they react, because they think that everything you say is gold and all your jokes make them roll on the floor laughing. Then there's the contrarians. They're the opposite group to the fans. They will always oppose you in any possible way and throw you those hardball questions at the end of the presentation. Then there's the swingers. I particularly dislike this group, let's say, because everything you say to them is awesome, as is everything anyone says, even the opposite of what you just said. Yay. Then there's the workers. Sometimes I'm one of them. They listen to you, but they have their eyes glued to the device, to their laptop, to their iPad, and they just glance at you if you say something really, really interesting. Otherwise, they work away. And there's the tweeters. The tweeters listen to you very, very, very attentively so that they can have that one bit of information, that short quote that will make them look smart on social media. Then there's the networkers. They listen to you, they listen to every word, but they are not really interested directly in your content, but rather in your contact. So, what should you do? How do you please everyone? This is the big question. How do you transform all your audience in nice little dots? Well, my response to this is that you don't. You just leave your audience as it is. They will react differently. And don't ever try to please everyone at the same time. It's really not possible. You don't please everyone, but you give something to everyone. Based on your research, you know what are the goals, what are the outcomes of the different groups that make your audience. So you give a little bit of something to each one of them. Now, your presentation has also a hidden goal, and this goal is to transform this audience into a group. But how do you achieve that? Well, it's quite easy. The way you transform your audience into a group is by letting them experience your presentation all together. And slowly going through the core transformation of your presentation, your audience will have the same way of feeling, the same way of seeing your topic, and become a group and start reacting in unison. To summarize, everyone will react differently to your material, and it's totally fine. Don't try to please everyone, and especially don't try to please everyone at the same time. And transform your audience into a group. That is the hidden goal of any successful presentation. And to start this lesson, I need to make a brief pause because there's something I need to tell you. It's a secret. Up until now, we've had lessons about motivation and motivating our audience and showing our own motivation. We've been talking about transformation, transforming our audience between the beginning and the end of our presentation. And we have been talking about their reactions just recently. And these concepts are all belonging to one greater concept, that is storytelling. But I didn't want to use the storytelling word beforehand because it's so much abused in these days. And to me, storytelling is the foundation of structure, and it's something actionable, and it's something that is in every part of this course. So now that we've taken this out of the way, let's dive into this most important concept. So if our presentation was a mountain, we would be right at the peak, at the highest point. In storytelling terms, we call this a climax. But what is it in practice? It's the high point of your presentation, is the summit of your delivery and your talk. It is the moment where you shine the most light and you provide the most insight to your audience. It's the moment where you shower your audience with information and you provide them the most data. And it is the moment that delivers the most transformation and helps the core transformation of your presentation the most. Now, your audience will understand this moment. They will know that the motivation and the reaction are a build-up, and this build-up leads to the climax up at the peak. Your audience will pay more attention to what they say. They will be excited by the most important concept. Your audience will also remember much, much better what you say. They understand another thing. It's downhill from there. The peak represents the beginning of the end of your presentation. So you find yourself on stage, you energize your audience, the energy level is at the highest possible. And what do? Well, you start preparing to leave the stage, because the climax is something that has to last for a very, very brief moment. So to summarize, you have to mark the most important point and the highest point of your presentation. You should structure your whole presentation in storytelling terms, and we'll see in the next couple of lessons how to end the presentation. And after the high point, you have to start heading downhill and make sure that you leave the stage in a timely manner. After the climax, after this high energy moment, we have to find an effective way of ending our presentation. And for me, ending a presentation is allowing our audience to start going back home, going back to their day, going back to their life, but changed by the core transformation. So at this point, you can provide some bullets. You can provide a list, and this list represents what you have covered in your presentation. It's a summary, but it doesn't need to be a dreary list. I want to suggest a different way of seeing this list. Why don't you take your audience flying above your topic? What I'm talking about is giving them a bird's eye view of what you've covered. Flying is great. Flying is exhilarating. Flying is a fantastic emotion. It's an emotion that charges you. And you not only charge and excited, but you have a feeling of dominating the landscape, of being the master of the land. Flying gives you a different perspective, a wider one, a perspective that you didn't have before. But not only that, it also allows you to see how far and how wide your travel was and how much of the topic you've covered. So provide a summary right after the climax. You do that because you can benefit from the excitement of the climax so that the summary can really sink in your audience. In fact, for your audience, since they come from this climax, it will be easier to make sense of what you say. They will understand you more fully, but they will also remember and memorize what you say more easily. So to summarize, don't just provide a list. Take your audience on a flight. Give them a bird's eye view. Make them feel like they are flying. Give them this new perspective and help them make sense and memorize your presentation. So up until now, we were providing a summary to our audience. Now we need to translate the wisdom of our presentation into something practical. The idea is that you provide something that your audience can apply in their everyday life, at work, at home, during their fitness routine. It should become a new habit for your audience, that it's picked up right at your presentation. In other terms, it's your gift. It's a gift from you to them. And it's not something you can apply to 100% of presentations, but give it as often as you can. You see, you spend most of your presentation making sense of data and transforming this data into meaning for your audience. And maybe your audience understands this meaning, and they maybe transform it into a memory. But let's say that we could add to this memory something actionable. Well, actionable to-dos are actually cement for your presentation to become a lasting memory in your audience. But now our presentation is coming to a close. We are reaching the end. How do we end? We could end on a hope, a wish. We could end on a word of wisdom, a quote. Or we can also end by giving a business-related call to action to our audience. We haven't talked about call to actions, but let's say that you have given and given and given content to your audience. Maybe you can ask for something back, for them to sign up somewhere, for them to try out your product. As you remember, we were going downhill. We went from the climax to the summary, and from the summary, we are at the to-dos. And now it's time to end. But how did we start? Well, we started by studying our audience, getting to know them, and starting to motivate them. But most of our presentation is spent actually between these 2 points, the transformation and the reaction of your audience. As we cycle through these 2 points, we kind of create the value of our presentation up until the moment where we can provide the climax. And then, you already know it from there. So, to summarize, provide a gift to your audience whenever you can, and transform your data, your meaning, into a habit. Now, for this lesson, we have to tackle something really important, because when we are presenting, we are center stage. Everyone is looking at us, and what do they see? They see our abilities. And we need to be ready for that spotlight. We need to be ready to shine. Because if we're very good at delivery and we have all the tips and tricks in the book, that will not save us from lack of knowledge. In my opinion, mastery is the one basic, essential presentation skill. I want to propose these 2 scenarios to you. In one scenario, you go to your boss, you admit that you're not ready for presenting, you go to a conference organizer and you say, maybe I can present at the next conference, not at this one. You go to your peers and you say, hey, I'm not ready, I need to study some more. In the second scenario, you hit your audience running and you fail publicly, right in front of everyone. To me, it's a no-brainer which of the 2 scenarios is the one you want to go for, because there is no shame in admitting that you're not ready and that you just need some more time to train, some more resources, some more time to study. Mastery of the topic is the one essential presentation skill, is the one thing you cannot do without. Consider yourself a defender of your topic. Consider yourself as the person that needs to help the topic reach the audience. And this is your crucial mission. And if you're not a master of the topic, that is absolutely not possible. Congratulations, you just finished this module. Take a moment to think about what you accomplished. You are on the way to become a presentation hero. And this is great. And this is a great time to share your accomplishment, not only because you have the right to brag, but because what's good is being a presentation hero if all your peers cannot do presentations as well as you do. So share your accomplishment and invite your peers into this journey. To summarize, knowledge is the one fundamental, essential presentation skill, and there is no shame in admitting that you are not ready. Step away from the computer, lesson number 1 of the 17 lessons of the presentation design module. In this design module, I want to talk to you about a presentation design process. And this process is a really important first step and requires you to take your laptop and turn it off, because your best ideas never came from your computer. Your computer may be full of tools that allows you to create presentations, to design them, but they don't allow you to strategize your presentations. And let's face it, we are not always productive when at the computer. Another great side effect of switching off the computer is that you get to stand up. And by standing up, you explore your space in 3 dimensions and your heartbeat gets going. So all you need is the right tools to become more creative. Let's look at those tools. First of all, and this you'll have it in your office for sure, it's pen and paper, as simple as that. Secondly, you need sticky notes, and lots of them, and if possible, also of different colors. Third, a whiteboard, but that's not really necessary. As long as you have pen and paper and sticky notes, you're fine. But a whiteboard can be a great tool to help you strategize your presentation. So to summarize, switch off that device because it doesn't contain your ideas. And get the right tools that will make you more creative. And in this lesson, we get into the process, but we need to summarize a few of the things we encountered in the structure module, because the structure will help us design. First of all, we need to know our topic. This knowledge is the most essential presentation skill. Secondly, we need to know our audience. We either research them as individuals or created personas in case we're encountering a group. And then we understood their wants, their goals, their stakes, and their reasons. We also understood our own, we listed them, and now we can reconcile those lists. You know your core transformation, and you know that during the course of your presentation, you can have even more than one. And at this point, it's a good time to take a sticky note and write down the core transformation in the form of a very, very simple sentence like, I want my audience to go from X to Y in regards to my topic, Z. I want to remind you that the core transformation is not your want, is not what you want to get from the presentation. The core transformation is not your reason to present, and it's neither your call to action. The core transformation determines the whole structure of your presentation. You can build the whole presentation around it. And it also determines the most important concept, because it's the moment where you deliver the most transformation. Now that those 4 elements are clear and out of the way, we can actually apply the storytelling structure and climb the mountain that we saw in the structure module. Tell your audience who you are and why you're there, why they are there, motivate them to listen. Tell them about the transformation and handle their reactions until you can get to the top of the mountain, deliver your climax, and start going downhill. Provide a summary, to-dos, and then ending your presentation. Now, if all of this is clear to you, you are off to a great start with Presentation Hero. To summarize, start from deep knowledge of audience and topic. Go on and focus on the core transformation. And finally, once everything is clear, start climbing the storytelling mountain. We all know that our presentation is made of slides, but what is a slide? How do we define it? Well, the slide, we can think of it as the main unit of content of our presentation. So, like the bit is for the computer, the slide is to the whole presentation. And each slide serves a purpose, and this purpose is to advance the core transformation of our presentation. Now, if you have a lot of slides and you want to know if you can cut a slide, you just need to ask yourself, does this slide help advance the core transformation? If it does, keep it there, but if it doesn't, be ruthless and cut it. To paraphrase Einstein, slides should be as simple as possible, but no simpler. So they shouldn't be a watered-down version of your hard-to-grasp concept. They just should be easy to understand. Now, you should have already a post-it with the core transformation on it. Add another one with the title of your presentation, and at that point, create a single sticky note for each of the slides of your presentation. Don't try to represent the whole slide there. Just write down the main concept or the title of that slide. At this point, you should have a number of slides and a number of sticky notes that contribute to the build-up. Some slides that provide a climax, and then a number of slides on the sticky notes that represent the ending of your presentation. Now, It's a good time to do a full rehearsal of your presentation following the sticky notes. And with this occasion, use a recorder and a clock to time and record yourself. Now, evaluate the results. Does the presentation flow? Does the structure work for you? Do you need to cut some slides at this point? Do you have a clear build-up and a clear climax? And finally, is any slide actually missing that you need? To summarize, a slide is the main unit of content of our presentation, and it helps advance the core transformation. Lay out the whole structure of your presentation through sticky notes, and once you have that structure, rehearse your presentation one first time. In this lesson, we ask ourselves a question. Now, whenever we are asked to do a presentation, do we default to creating a slide deck? Because there is a case to be made for going without slides. Now, if we don't have any slide behind us or next to us, all the focus will be on us. And if we don't have slides, then our audience will not be distracted by any visual. At the same time, we will benefit from the same strong structure that we had all along with Presentation Hero, and all the work that we're doing, it's still there because all our slides will become talking points. There is a case to be made also for going with slides, actually, because slides can be very powerful in terms of visuals. Imagine how evocative a photo like this can be. Some audiences also expect us to come with a slideshow prepared, and they will think that we haven't done our job if we don't present with a slideshow. And let's face it, slides can boost our confidence, even though we shouldn't use them as crutches. So entertain the possibility of going slideless. To summarize very briefly, evaluate each time the opportunity, and in case, go without slides. It is the best practice of presentation design to have always one single concept per slide. There are only two exceptions, and otherwise always have just one single concept per slide. The first exception is when you are presenting the relationship between concepts. In this case, you're allowed to have more than one concept because you want to show how they relate to each other. However, the single elements, so the single concepts, must be already known and familiar to your audience. They must have been introduced at a previous time. The second exception has to do with a moment that you are very familiar with, the summary. In this case, you are allowed to provide a list because you're actually summarizing information that your audience already knows. Now, this is a good time to review your sticky notes and make sure that you have always only one single concept per slide. And if you have created bulleted lists, you have to throw away the list and keep the single concepts each in a separate slide. Now look at your sticky notes again, but think of them as talking points this time. And think about the fact that maybe some of these talking points would benefit from not having a slide at all, and you shouldn't create that slide. So to summarize, keep it simple, just one concept per slide. Look at your slides as talking points and see where you need a visual and where you don't. If you've been following this module closely, you will have all your slides already in front of you, laid out in sticky notes. You should have one sticky note for the title, one for the core transformation, and a lot of single sticky notes for all the slides that form your presentation. Now, take those sheets of paper and pen and pencil that we saved at the beginning, and you can start visually sketching your slides. You can create an easy, quick preview of what your slide will look like in the end. If any design is not really convincing, in this phase, it takes no effort to trash a design. And if you fall in love with something and you want to carry it over to the next phase, you can always scan it and keep it inside your presentation. Am I asking you to spend even more time on a new task? Well, actually, a little bit more time spent with pen and paper means a lot less time spent in front of the computer. At this point, do a new rehearsal. You have your sticky notes as a guide and you have your sketches as visual aids, and see how your presentation flows. To summarize, spend a little bit more time with the flexibility of pen and paper and sketch your slides. For this lesson, we switch on our computers again, but we don't fire up any presentation design software, but rather a simple text editor where we write down all the text that's supposed to appear on the slides of our presentation. Now, once we have all our text in one place, the first thing we can do is to verify that we have a uniform amount of text in each slide. And we either edit the text to make it shorter, or we create additional slides to host this amount of extra text. Then we can check the consistency and uniformity of our language so that whenever we call for a specific concept, we use a consistent wording. Then, having the text all in one place allows us to verify the readability and, most importantly, to spell check and make sure that we don't have any nasty mistakes. But remember, in this phase, focus on your audience and remember that you are writing for them. What will they like? What will they understand? To summarize, work on your text all in one place and consistently to optimize it before opening any presentation design software. And we have to go back to our audience because we are creating slides for them. And we have to please them with our visuals. We don't have to create something that we like. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we have to look at our material through their eyes. We have to imagine what they will perceive when they look at our presentation. Will our slides look familiar to them? Or will they look a little bit foreign but still quite interesting? Or will they look shocked in front of our slides because they're too foreign? We have a lot of visuals at our disposal. Text can drive a lot of meaning and is one of my favorite visuals ever. But photos and illustrations can drive emotion, so they're truly powerful and you can use them in your presentations because they have a really high bandwidth. Diagrams can be great if you want to clarify a concept, and charts and maps can display a lot of information, a lot of hard information visually in a very simple way. You also have a great range of styles to choose from, and there's not a lot that goes into setting a tone through styles. So consider all of your material with the eyes of your audience. To summarize, always keep your audience in mind when designing. In this lesson, we have to get a little bit technical because we need to know the formats, the resolutions, and the mediums that we're going to use for our presentation. Now, let's start with the formats. They're quite important, and there's just 3 to know. The first one is 4:3. It's a traditional format for slideshows, and it corresponds to the 1024 by 768 pixels resolution. There's another format made popular by new widescreen televisions, and it's a 16:9 format. It's a more cinema-like format, and it comes in 2 different resolutions. The first one is known as 720p, and the second one is the most used, is the 1080p resolution. Now that aspect ratios and resolutions are out of the way, let's look at the medium that you're going to use to present. If your medium will be paper, use a white background and a 4:3 format. But think for a second and pause. Your presentation is not really a presentation if your medium is paper. In the words of Gar Reynolds, your presentation is a slide document or a slidegement. In this case, why don't you turn the paper slightly and change the tool and use a word processor and create a memo instead? if you're going to use a projector, the most important thing is that your slides have high contrast, and most modern projectors will have a 16:9 aspect ratio. Choose the simplest possible background that ensures the best contrast with the information that you want to display on the slides. What happens with a lot of projectors is that your slides will appear watered down. So if they don't have enough contrast to begin with, they will be unreadable for your audience. And most importantly, optimize the font size and think at the person in the back of the room. Can they read your slides? If you're going to use a flat screen TV, and this is my favorite medium, you can go straight for a 1080p resolution. Modern TVs offer a wide screen size, at the same time very high resolution and very high contrast. So they're great for displaying your slides exactly as you imagine them. The other thing is that they invite your audience to sit closer to you, and they can create a more intimate environment. If you're going to present with your laptop, I cannot give you any advice about the format or the resolution. You have to look at the resolution and the format of your screen. And in this case, what you get is an even more intimate environment where everybody comes together to access the technology and to look at your presentation. Another medium that is intimate is the tablet. In this case, if you're using any Apple device, go with a 4:3 format. Tablets are great because they let your audience interact physically with your presentation. And obviously, they have to come together in a very intimate way to enjoy your presentation. So to summarize, paper not the best medium for your presentation. Projectors, mind your contrast. Modern TVs, just a fantastic, great medium for presenting. Your laptop can create a more intimate environment, but the tablet is really the killer here because it lets your audience interact with your presentation. So if you have a small group, go for the tablet. In this lesson, we are going to find ways to get inspired because we have to work on our own visual style. And to do that, we have two different ways. The first way is to start collecting what we like. And I suggest that you start taking camera phone pictures, that you start taking screenshots, and you collect in a folder all of the stuff that you find inspiring, all the images that you find balanced, all the ads that capture your attention. The second thing you can do is to go on the web and find some websites that can provide that inspiration on demand when you need it. I have 7 suggestions for you. The first one is SlideShare. It's the most popular slide sharing website on the planet, and it features a ton of presentations. The second website I'm suggesting is SpeakerDeck. It's similar to SlideShare, but is more focused on tech presentations. Note in point, contrary to the first two, is a hand-curated platform that selects only the presentations that look that much better. Tumblr can be a great tool to find visual inspiration. You just need to input the right keyword in the search box. Pinterest is also a great tool. It's a little bit more business friendly than Tumblr, and you can find a ton of inspiration, for instance, in infographics. My last 2 tools are Designspiration, that is a tool that lets you just browse through great visual examples, and Behance, where a lot of creatives upload their portfolio, so you find all the latest trends here. So to summarize, start collecting what you like. Create a place where you collect and save all the stuff that's visually stimulating for you. And whenever you need to start a new presentation, spend a little bit of time on the web to get primed by some great visuals before you start working on your own. In this lesson, we have to learn a little bit of color theory. Just the basics in order to start using color more appropriately. But first, we have to let the slides go white, because otherwise we're not going to look at the colors with the right background. Sometimes we can let our topic decide our color palette. So let's say that we have a talk about money, and maybe we can use the color green. Sometimes we can choose it based on our audience. So if we were presenting at a certain cola company, we could turn our slides red. But to understand which color to use, we have to know this conventional display of colors that is called the color wheel, plus these other 4 colors that complement it. Now, colors have meaning, and these meanings are associated with how we perceive the colors in the West and Western culture, and they vary a lot. They are not unequivocal. Now, these meanings are, for instance, that red stands for love and energy, and yellow stands for hunger and happiness, and this is why McDonald's uses red and yellow. Or that orange stands for wealth, so this is why ING Direct, a bank, and EasyJet, a low-cost airline, both use that kind of color. The colors that are on the right, they're also as important, because if we think about the use of the color white in technology right now, or for instance also in technology about the color gray that is neutral, practical, these are really important. Or if you think about the combination of black and white and gray that is very, very much used at the moment, you can see that those are perfect complements to the more emotional aspect of the colors in the color wheel. Now you should ask, how do you mix colors? Well, thank you for the question. There's 2 basic ways to mix colors. The first one is to look for the neighboring colors, and the neighboring colors, like for instance, if we look here at the orange together with the yellow, they blend very nicely. So if you want to create a palette where the colors go well together, you can use that. But sometimes you need contrast. Like for instance, when you want something to stand out, or let's say that you are creating a web page and you want to create a button, if that page is light blue, your color should better be red. And so you travel all the way across the color wheel and you find the opposites. White, black, and gray go well with all the colors on the color wheel. We can look at them right now. But be aware that there are a few exceptions, because sometimes you don't get the right contrast. So that's the rule, but there's already some exceptions. Now, if you're intimidated by the use of different colors, I have a trick for you. Just pick one color that you like and start reducing the tint progressively, and you will obtain similar colors that go perfectly well together. But you know what's another trick is that you don't need to invent your own color palette, because somebody has done it for you already. Introducing colorlovers.com. Go to Color Lovers and you can search millions of palettes by keyword, or even better, browse all-time favorites. And you can browse palettes that have been commented on, favorited, and vetted by thousands of people. And so these are palettes that are proven to be liked by your audience. What I want to tell you to conclude is that yes, you need to know the basics of color theory, but the most important thing is you just start to have fun with color and start to get playful with it, because it can drive a lot of meaning as long as you feel more comfortable with it. So to summarize, don't be afraid of color, just learn the basics and learn how to play with it. We use fonts inside our computers all the time, but we are a little bit unconscious of the rules of typography. A lot of fonts look great, but we should know a little bit more, and this is all that we're going to do in this lesson. Our computer offers us so many options, and the first thing we need to do is to focus and laser in on just one single font. That will be the font that we're going to use in this presentation. In this example, Helvetica. Now, using one font doesn't mean that your presentation is going to be dull or boring, because each font can include different weights. And these weights come together with sizes and allow you to define the styles of your presentation. Now, based on the amount of text that you have, that you already know, you can choose a style for your titles, you can choose a style for your text, and it's also a good idea to have a special style because there's always something that you want to highlight in your slides, and so you could have one style for emphasis. Now, we're going to come back to this, but it's really important. Be consistent. Once you choose the styles, these are fixed. There are two big families of fonts. One family is called serif, and one family is called sans serif. What distinguishes them is quite simply what's highlighted in the circles. One family of fonts has those serifs, the other one doesn't have them. Let's focus on the serif for the moment. You've seen it everywhere, especially in newspapers and books, because it's elegant, it's traditional, and it has a high readability, especially in long forms. And if you want to use a serif in your presentations, go for Georgia. Let's go to sans serif. Sans serif is more modern, and it's perfect for headers. And if you want to use a great sans serif, you can use Helvetica. This is what we're using in this example. Now let's look at the font that we use throughout this presentation. We are using Fira, and Fira comes in all these fantastic different weights. You need to know as well that italic is less readable than regular, so if you have something really important that you want to say, don't say it in italic. Lowercase text is usually more readable than uppercase text, so don't fill a slide just with uppercase text. And although justified text might look neat and tidy, text aligned to the left is easier to read. Now, once you establish your styles, you need to stick to them. But what happens in a lot of presentations is that you find one slide like this, and then in the next slide there is a shorter title, so they make it larger, and there is more text, and so the text gets shrunk. Don't do it. Don't ever do it. Be consistent and have similar length and similar font size in all of your slides. And it might happen that you need to adapt your text because you have something that is too long, and you should adjust the text of your slides to your styles and not do the other way around. And finally, always use big fonts. The bigger, the better. The rule is to start with 30 points minimum, but I would say go for 60, go for 90. It's really important. So to summarize, be conscious about your typography, and once you know how much text and how much information is going to go into your slides, establish those fonts beforehand. We have to talk about layouts because with computers we have this freedom, we have this canvas that we can fill with whatever we want and wish. Well, that's exhilarating, but we do need a set of rules so that we can know how to fill that space. Why would we need rules? Well, basically because we want to give a sense of order to our space. We're going to give a sense of belonging to the single slides of the presentation, and we want to give to our audience a sense of the continuity of what we're telling. Right now, you should have some post-it notes with a sequence of your slides. You should have some sketches with roughly the layouts that you need. So my suggestion to you is to start thinking in terms of layouts, in terms of grids, before you create the actual slides. Create all the layouts that you need, but remember to create always as few as possible. The layouts can determine the different moments and the different sections of your presentation, and to that purpose you can also use color. You can alter the layout of your slides when it makes sense, but do it inside of the grids. And don't be afraid to reuse the different layouts in different moments of your presentation. Your audience will appreciate it. So my message for you with all of this design process is to be consistent with your color palette, be consistent with your fonts, and be consistent with your layout. to summarize, I suggest that you work beforehand on your layouts and you determine the minimum amount of layouts that you will need to create your presentation. In this lesson, all of our design process comes neatly together. And it's the first time that we open PowerPoint, Keynote, Prezi, Haiku Deck, whatever presentation design software we are using, we're going to open it only at this point. And at this point, we already have lots of assets. Let's review them. The first asset we have is our sticky notes. We have a sticky note with the title, sticky note with a core transformation, and one sticky note for each slide and each talking point of our presentation. We also have our sketches, and through those sketches we know exactly what to feature in each slide of the presentation. We have our text, and the text is already spell checked, it's neatly organized and waiting for us in our favorite text editor. And we've established a color palette, we've established fonts and styles for titles and text of our presentation already, and we also have the layouts that we're going to need to create all the slides. So what's missing is actually to compile all of these things and to put them together in our presentation. So to summarize, this is the time to compile the elemental pieces of the presentation together and see it finally as a whole. To get through with this lesson, you will need to get a pair of virtual scissors. And with these scissors, you have to start cutting stuff from your presentation. Because this is what an editor does. So look at your slides with the eyes of an editor. And while you look at them, and while you look at your talking points, ask yourself an important question. Ask, does this slide or does this talking point contribute to the advancement of the core transformation? Does it help me get my point across? If it does, then the slide and the talking point belong to your presentation. If they don't, you have to cut them. So look for some slides that you can cut, look for some talking points that you can cut, and this is a really important mission. You have to streamline your presentation. So to summarize, editing, yes, means a lot of things, but it also means cutting. Now you have your whole presentation in front of you for the first time, and what you have to do is you have to rehearse it. But don't just rehearse it. Take out a stopwatch and measure exactly how long it takes to deliver the presentation and to deliver each section of the presentation. How does it flow? Do you have some space? Do you have some time to breathe? Or is it so compact that you have to go quickly over some of the topics? Or is it even the case that you have too many slides and too many talking points and you still have to cut some of them? So to summarize, rehearse, but do it with a stopwatch to understand the timing of your presentation. The final lesson of the presentation design module. Presentation Hero provides a blueprint. It provides a set of indications, but actually there are absolutely no rules. You are in front of a fantastic opportunity. You're in front of a blank canvas each time you create a presentation, both in terms of structure and in terms of design. So whenever you want to create a presentation, you know a powerful storytelling blueprint, but at the same time, you are totally free to decide not to follow it. So for instance, you might want to start your presentation from a summary and you just flip the structure and you know you're not following it, but you still know what each step brings to your audience. Maybe you don't want to feature just one concept per slide, but you want to feature more of them. Well, you're breaking a rule, but you're free to do it. So learn the rules and learn what the rules mean, but at the same time, allow yourself to break them. Think like an artist. Presentations are a totally creative space. So let's summarize what we did in this whole module. We started by eliminating the computer, by thinking about how our structure could inform our design process, and thinking about the unit of content of our presentation, the slide. Then we started to deal with the slides, thinking about not using them and having just talking points and using this whole process but just with talking points, on how many concepts to have per slide, on the idea of sketching them on paper first and starting with the text so that we have all our text neatly already organized before we start creating our slides. Then we started approaching the design, thinking about what to design for our audience, starting to understand something technical about the output format, and finding on-demand inspiration and getting a way to find our own visual style. Then we worked on the elemental pieces of design: color, typography, and layout. And the idea is to have those before you start compiling the presentation. And this is where we bring it all together by compiling, by editing the presentation, and most importantly, by timing it. And finally, this lesson about not having rules. Congratulations! You just finished this module. It's really time to celebrate because you are on the way to become a presentation hero. There's no better time to share your accomplishment and to invite your peers into this same journey, because if you're the only one, you're not going to save the world from bad presentations. You need to recruit more people. To summarize, think like an artist and learn the rules to break them. Always rehearse, the first lesson of the 12 lessons of the presentation delivery module. Now let's imagine that your presentation is ready, you have all the slides, and now you need to prep because very soon you will meet your audience. What should you do? Well, in my opinion, you should rehearse as much as possible. Because if you don't, there is no way you're going to deliver the core transformation in the best possible way. There is no way you can deliver value to your audience. However, there's a lot of people that resist this idea of rehearsing. They say that they don't have time. But I wonder, they had time to think about their presentation, they had time even to prepare slides and visuals. How come they don't have time to rehearse? They are just not planning for it. The other thing they say is that rehearsing will make them sound fake. But it is actually the contrary, because rehearsing will make you sound more confident, and sounding more confident will make you more believable. So your delivery is way more important than your visuals. Your delivery will be remembered by your audience way more than your visuals. So devote way more time to rehearsing rather than spending a lot of time polishing your visuals. In Presentation Hero, rehearsal happens already inside the design process. Wherever you have a sequence, you can already start rehearsing, and there's multiple points during the design process where you can stop, make a step back, and rehearse your presentation. But now that you have your slides ready, make sure that you devote as much time as possible to rehearsing. So to summarize, simply plan your time in advance so that you have enough to rehearse. Now, if you don't control completely the language of your presentation, you're doing a disservice to your topic, you're giving a bad deal to your audience, and altogether you're putting your presentation in great danger. The status quo may be poor, and every day we hear bad presentations, and those bad presentations are often done by a non-native speaker. The fact that everybody around us is doing the same mistake doesn't make it right. I give you two options. You can ask for a translator. You can always do that. Or you can select a different crowd. You can go speak to a crowd that will truly understand you. Always, always, always present in a language that you master, that you control, where you feel more confident. This will boost your delivery in a way that nothing else can. No matter how much you work on your storytelling, no matter how much you work on your slide design, they will all go to waste if you are not proficient with the language. So to summarize, let me repeat it once more. You really need to master the language if you're looking for excellence in presentation delivery. There's a lot of presenters that use slides like they are scaffolding. They just sit on top of them. But what if they disappear? Would you be able to go on with your talk even if your slides are not there? Some would say that the solution is to memorize your presentation. But my advice is not to go word for word. What is then my solution? Well, it is to memorize only the structure. So to commit to memory the sequence of your presentation. And you don't even need to commit it completely to memory because you can cheat. You can take a piece of paper and you can write down the sequence of your talk and keep it in your hand just to be extra sure. In this way you can go on even if your slides completely disappear. Once you've done that, look for some recurring words and phrases. And make sure that you repeat them consistently. This is what linguists call framing, and this is how you help your audience better understand and better memorize your key phrases and concepts. So to summarize, commit to memory the sequence of your presentation, and in case, cheat with a piece of paper, and frame the main concepts of your presentation by repeating them in a consistent manner. It happens to many presenters. They step on stage and from that moment they lose track of time. And what they do usually is they delegate time tracking to the conference organizer. And this leads to incomprehensions, it leads to mistakes, and it leads basically to the fact that you are disrespecting the audience in the end. So why don't you keep track of time with your devices? Carry a watch, set a timer on your smartphone. Even better, get a wireless clicker that has a timer integrated. And integrate time tracking also in the rehearsal so that you know how much each section and each part of your presentation lasts. As we said in the presentation structure module, when you reveal the structure and timing of your presentation, you're kind of signing a contract with your audience and you're telling them, I respect your time. Time is so important because when you're presenting, you're not only using your time, you're using your audience's time as well. Whenever you're on stage, don't get caught by the excitement. Try to end your presentation early, end it on a high note, and make room for a nice conversation with your audience. This is almost always the best outcome of a presentation. Always be time conscious and keep track of time while you're on stage. When you're on stage, your voice is your main instrument. And the first thing you have to care about is that it reaches your audience. Pronounce everything very, very clearly. Make sure that at least you're understandable. And, avoid fillers. Use silence. It is a really powerful tool. And whenever you can, hit up a recorder and listen to yourself afterwards. You will catch so many interesting mistakes and you can correct them. Another thing you can do is to invite a friendly audience. Maybe you can go at the Toastmasters group, or you can find a meetup group that is focused on presenting and public speaking. Finally, try not to lose your quirks. Try not to lose your personality, try not to lose your accent, try to be yourself while you try to be the best presenter that's in you. So to summarize, your voice is like your trumpet, is your piano, it's your instrument. Care for it. When you think about your next presentation, what do you think about first? You think about your slides, you think about your voice, you think about your message. I bet you don't think about your body language, but your body communicates a lot when you're on stage. Try to stand up straight and have the friendliest base posture. On top of that, try to have natural movements that will make your audience welcome in your presentation. And don't expect to control your body language completely, but avoid these two behaviors. The first one is turning your back to the audience. It might come natural to you because you want to check your slides, but you should have a laptop or a monitor in your line of sight so you never need to turn your back. The other thing is leg turns. Whenever there is a leg turn, you just stand in front of it, on the side of it, but you never present while you're behind. The only exception is if you're an old eminent professor, alright? So to summarize, your body language is part of your presentation. Don't turn around, don't look at your slides, don't show your back to your audience. Whenever there is a lectern, consider it like a radioactive zone of the stage. Step away and keep away from it. Whenever you step on the stage and you're giving a presentation, the clothes that you're wearing, that may be normal clothes, actually become a costume. What you should try to do is to align what you are wearing with the content, the topic, and the message of your presentation, and try with what you wear to boost the message of your presentation. Clothes are one of the many ways you use to communicate with your audience. The one suggestion that works all the time is to be personal, is to be yourself. To summarize, align what you're wearing with the message of your presentation. If you are like me, your presentation will depend on technology. And how do you make sure that everything goes your way? Well, there's a few things that you need to know. First, you need a backup. I create one on a USB stick and another one I put it in the cloud so I can access it from any device. When I create the backup, I usually create a PDF so I can open that file just from any computer and any device. Bring a spare system. Presentation professionals travel with 2 identical laptops. You don't need to be that nerdy, but probably you're carrying a smartphone or a tablet. Well, I'm sure there's some kind of cable that you can use to connect that to a projector, and there you go, you have a spare system. Write a packing list, because there's a lot of odd bits and pieces that have to come together in order for you to present with your technology. Get a wireless clicker is one of the best investments you can make. I suggest to get one with a timer. You can find the link in the notes of this lesson. Learn some keyboard shortcuts that are relevant to your system. It will make you more confident while you're on the stage. Don't rely on the fact that you're going to find a tech team in place when you arrive to present. Imagine that you're alone and you have to set up everything on your own. This way you'll be best prepared for any technical emergency. To summarize, have multiple backups, at least one in the cloud. A spare system is probably already in your pocket. Packing list, write it once and follow it forever. Wireless clicker, a small investment that you have to make. Keyboard shortcuts will make you more confident. It is always a good idea to bring a camera and to record when you're on stage. What happens is one of 2 things. You either have a great recording and you upload it on YouTube, on Vimeo, you share it with the world, you share it on social media, and your message spreads beyond the room you were in. If you didn't do a great job, well, that's really not a problem. You can review your presentation and learn from what you did wrong. The gear you need to do the recording is already in your pocket. Every smartphone is a perfect video recorder. But if you want something dedicated, a used video camera, last year camera, is perfect. A cheap plastic tripod for Amazon will cost you less than $150. And whenever you want to step up to the next level, you don't need a super professional camera. You need a very, very good microphone. Decide if you need something that sticks on you like a lapel microphone or a camera microphone that is more professional. But in case, just invest in your audio gear. Get the cheapest HD camera that you can. So to summarize, get some gear and make it a habit to record your presentations. Presentations are a scary thing. I'm scared every time I have to do one. To one person, to 10 people, to 100 people, I'm always scared. And I think fear is totally normal. It's something that happens all the time. I don't think you should do a meditation exercise to calm down. I don't think you should breathe like you're taking a nap. I think that you should embrace your fear and use the energy that is inside your fear to drive your presentation forwards. But you know what can happen is that you can get blocked by fear. And in this case, it helps just to begin your presentation. But how do you begin if you're so fearful? Well, what you do is you memorize the beginning of your presentation, just the first 2 or 3 sentences, in order for you to be able to automatically beat this fear and start going on. After you begin with your presentation, well, your fear will still be with you, but you will be able to control it more and more. And remember, your audience has no idea that you're scared. Let it be a secret. Never tell them. All right? So to summarize, try to use the energy that is bottled in your fear. Don't try to calm down. Try to get excited. And never give in. Never reveal the secret. Let it be a secret between you and me that you're scared. All right? Whenever you are on stage, you are leading the room. You are bringing them somewhere. And you shouldn't complain because you don't lead by complaining. You should never let your audience focus on an issue. They are there to focus on you, on the value that you have to provide, on the story that you're going to deliver. You should never underline a problem, because most of the time, if there's a problem in your presentation, you are the only one that knows. So keep it a secret. Don't talk about your gear malfunctioning. Don't talk about the projector or your clicker. And if there is a glitch, just carry on without underlining it. When you're on stage, you should become a presenting machine. So let's say that your slides disappear. Well, you have your structure committed to memory, so you can absolutely go on. Let's say that the laptop stops working completely. Well, in case you have a demo, you can always describe it. Let's say that your microphone stops working. Well, you have to find another way to get heard by your audience. The only case you can complain is when the problem is felt by your audience first. So if the room is too hot, you can complain, but remember, side with them. To summarize, don't highlight problems, soldier on with your presentation, and if there is a big problem that is felt by your audience, side with them. The last lesson of the presentation delivery module. My final advice for you in terms of delivery is to bring your personality, to bring your little quirks, to bring your defects, to bring your style on the stage with you. All these advices in terms of becoming an excellent presenter really have one big hidden risk, is that you lose yourself. And even though there's great presenters and great conferences, you should try to get inspiration from them, but never try to imitate them. It would sound like a mockery. And don't over-polish your presentation and your delivery, because the greatest risk is that you sound non-authentic, you sound non-believable because you are too rehearsed, too perfect, too polished. Bring those imperfections to the stage. They will make your presentation really perfect. So be yourself, while at the same time you try to take out the best presenter that is inside of you. So if you're an introvert, try to act extrovert. If you speak in a very soft voice, try to speak up. But try to continue being yourself while you try to be the best presenter possible. We covered a lot of ground during this module. Let's see what happened. We started with some pre-flight checks. We talked about rehearsal, we talked about mastering the language, and how my suggestion is to memorize your structure rather than memorizing all of your presentation. And then a really important advice about keeping the timing in check. Then we went into the core of delivery, which is your voice, which is your presence and your posture, and the way you are dressed when you're on stage. We went into some technicalities because it's really important to check your tech, and it's totally useful to always record your presentation. And then finally, these 3 last lessons for me are really important. Embrace your fear is a really important concept. You have to never complain. You should never ever complain. The show must go on. And be yourself, bring yourself to the stage. Congratulations, you just finished this module. You're really on the way to becoming a presentation hero, and I'm really proud. Now, this is a great time to share your accomplishments and to invite other people to make the same journey to presentation excellence. This is it for this module. Thank you.